Welcome to the Leaders of Lasting Impact podcast. I'm Matt Pohl, your host. I'm pleased today to be joined by Ryan Weiss, President of Effective Performance Strategies. They also go by EPS. So thanks for joining us, Ryan.
Thanks for having me on, Matthew. It's my pleasure. I'm excited to be chatting with you today.
Yeah, like we were just talking before we got started, you're from kind of the Chicago area. I'm from the Iowa area, and we have a little bit of overlap in our growing up experience, so that's cool. I'd like to just have you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your background, kind of maybe your professional development. How'd you get to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my first company when I was 15 years old. I'm not going to give you a long history of all of it, but I was very entrepreneurial at a young age.
Okay.
And started a lawn care business. My youngest brother still owns it today. He has about 50 trucks now. He's grown it into quite an enterprise. But then I got degrees in chemistry and finance, went and worked for a big multinational for about 17 years, moved to Asia and back a couple of times. And about 7 years ago, a little bit over 7 years ago, we moved back from the Philippines, and I decided it was time to get entrepreneurial again. And so I left the corporate world, started my own business, and it was in early 2016. And so for the past 7 years, been building a team, building a business around the alignment of people and process to accelerate performance. So yeah, I've had a wide variety of roles, but really my passion coming back to that entrepreneurial mindset, helping small and mid-sized businesses get things aligned and ready to scale.
Okay, that's great. I can relate to your lawn care business. I was kind of the neighborhood mower of yawns. I didn't turn that into a full business. So kudos for you. That is still existing is amazing. So you've gone from being in the corporate world to now advising businesses. That can be a pretty big transition. Tell us why you did that. What kind of was the impetus?
Yeah. So a couple of things. One, in the corporate world, I was sort of getting frustrated with kind of politics and the things that you have to deal with in large corporations, and had this passion to want to get back out and be entrepreneurial again. And went through we moved 7 times in 17 years. My oldest children are 21 now. I mean, they went to school in Kansas, Singapore, Chicago, Philippines, New Jersey, back here to the Chicago area. So they went to 6 different schools by the time they were in high school. And so really part of it was I just wanted to come back, be my family. My father had some health issues. The other part of it was this desire to be entrepreneurial again and to start something new. And I knew I'd done it before and I could do it again. It was harder the second time around in that I had probably become comfortable in the corporate world. To a degrry, having paychecks show up every other week and having bonuses at the end of the year and expat allowances and all these other things. But what I've really been drawn to over the past few years, especially, is working with smaller to mid-sized businesses, and that's become really core to what I do. And I just have so much fun with it because when I help a client or when we advise a client, there's actually actions that take place. Sometimes in the corporate world, it's like you have to align it with these people, and you have to work through the politics of it. But in the small to mid-sized business world, like if you're investing in changing something, you're going to change it. And it's much more. You can see the impact very quickly.
Yeah, that's great. That's one of the reasons we wanted to have you on, is just your passion for small, mid-sized businesses. That's what we're all about. We just believe that part of the economy plays such a vital role, not just financially, but also culturally. A lot of our mid-sized businesses contribute to the middle class of our society. So we want to see them succeed. When you look at the businesses that you work with, are there certain sizes that you tend to concentrate on? Are there industries that you seem to have a greater focus, or is it a pretty broad based?
Yeah. So when I first started the company, I was really focused on manufacturing. That had become sort of that's where most of my career was up until
Okay,
I started the business. So I started with manufacturing. So I've got plastics manufacturers, paperboard, packaging type companies. And so I spent a lot of time in manufacturing, but especially once COVID hit, I actually lost all of my clients on March 13th of 2020. I will never forget that day. So I was driving home from Cincinnati, Ohio, back to the Chicago area, and my whole business was built around going out on site at clients to solve problems.
right.
And in that day, as COVID was, taking over the country and everything was getting shut down, every client I had called me and told me not to come and told me that they were postponing our project. So I
Okay.
lost every single client I had that day. And
Wow.
as my prayer back from Cincinnati back to Chicago was basically, all right, God, what do you got for me now? What do you want me to do? This is your business, not mine. I have no idea. Right.
Right, right.
And what ended up happening was I really started, in my heart saying, all right, I don't know what the next year is going to bring, but I'm going to invest in relationships. And through that transition, I have really started working with, rental agencies, construction industry, manufacturing, trucking, marketing agencies, training companies. I mean, across the board, helping organizations, even a small like coffee shop,
Okay.
restaurant. Yeah, examples across the board. Basically, all industries can
Yeah.
apply the optic system that I've created,
Hmm.
and so in one sense, COVID killed my business. In another sense, it revitalized it and refocused it in a whole new way that I couldn't have imagined before.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I know at the Rewild group, we were just launching our methodology around that time. Just I was down in Dallas doing a seminar, and it was like, what do you mean the NBA has canceled its season? What's this about? I don't even know what's going on. And we had to retool ours too to be able to do it virtually instead of only in person. So, but I agree with you. It created a new opportunity. We weren't anticipating it, but it's turned out, I think, to be a blessing in the long run. Um, when you work with your clients, are there any kind of standard themes or challenges, kind of areas that you tend to focus on that you see are, the big pain point that you can really help with?
Yeah. So typically clients come to me or start working with me when they see that they've got process problems, typically across departments, but even in a smaller company, as they're scaling up or as they're starting, inconsistencies in their process or
Okay.
handoffs between people or departments or inconsistencies in what their customers are receiving as an output. So the optic system that I created helps to get that alignment, helps to improve those handoffs between departments, helps align expectations of accountability, responsibility, quality, value, and speed, and just really help people in a few short workshops to start getting that alignment much clearer in a way that they can scale better or have better consistency, better quality, reduce costs, things like that. So that's typically how clients come to us.
Um, what does a typical client engagement look like for you? Is it fairly fixed, or can it extend a long period of time?
Yeah, so a lot of them start off with what we call our high performance workshop, which is a series of typically 3 to 4 90-minute workshops, virtual workshops, where we walk them through and create an optics program or optics system where they start looking at where are their pain points visually in terms of process, people, and performance. And through that, what often happens is then there are action items that come out of that to either be solved or sometimes the client goes back and does it again with another system or another process in their organization.
Oh,
So
okay.
typically starts with those 3 to 4 90-minute workshops. But I've got some clients that have been clients for 4 or 5 years now.
Okay.
And one of them it's a larger company, but we've done it 39 times in their organization
Wow.
with different systems and processes. And but then we've got other ones where it's been a series of 3 to 4 workshops and an action plan and helping coach them through that.
Well, maybe one of those companies you're talking about might fit into this question, but I was wondering if you could share a story about a client. Obviously, we'll keep their name confidential, but just tell us a little bit of story about where they were, how you impacted them, and specifically, we're looking for long-term impact on an organization. If you could share an example of that.
Sure. So I worked with a training company actually pretty early in COVID that was struggling with client retention. So they helped train salon owners, so people who own salons, to be more effective, to have higher profitability, things like that. So they had a team. I think they probably had about 8 or 9 employees. And when we went through this series of questions, this short series of workshops, one of the things that became very evident as we started thinking about their customer journey was that there were about 4 handoffs that had to happen before a client of theirs started really getting value. And what I mean by that is they had a marketing team that was chatting with clients and reaching out, or chatting with prospects or leads, trying to turn them into prospects. Then they had a sales team that would onboard the client or like close the deal. Then they had a finance group that was kind of like taking the payment and getting them matched up with a coach. And then they had their coach. So it was the 4th person that a typical prospect would talk to before they started getting real value from their system. And so they were losing a huge percentage of their prospects out of their pipeline.
Okay.
And so as we did these couple of workshops, it became very evident to everyone as they looked at the key process steps and the accountable responsible matrix and just walking through that, they realized, and I could see the pain in some of their eyes, that there was this finger pointing going on, like, well, I sent this over to you and then you didn't follow up right away. And then, and this type of thing was happening.
Yeah.
And so they ended up in just those few workshops, they created a position called a client concierge. So every client, as soon as they became like, all right, this is a target client, they would be guided through the process like a concierge to say, all right, we're going to get you value before you're off the phone today. And by doing that, by transforming that in their business, their client retention, or let's say prospect retention in their pipeline to become clients, increased exponentially. And as well, one of the other things was that the clients, once they became clients, were much more satisfied, much quicker, and so they're much more participative in the workshops and all of that. So it was really a great success story that happened just in a few workshops where we clarified things, got it on one piece of paper, and they said, this is it. This is what we need to do.
Right. So you're able to help them step back far enough, see that there were too many moving parts, simplify it, and the net result was a much stronger onboarding process for new prospects.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. You've talked about you were focused on manufacturing, and then post-COVID, you've broadened your industry set. Do you still do manufacturing?
Oh yeah, I was at a manufacturing client this morning. They do plastics extrusion, and so I've helped them with everything from their die development process to their tooling, what they call tooling development. So die design, tooling development. We've worked on their customer service processes. So they've actually, that's one of my manufacturing clients that we've been working with for quite some time now.
Okay, that's awesome. If you had kind of a word of advice based on your decades of experience, both in that corporate world and now advising small and mid-sized businesses, is there any kind of I don't know, a word of advice, or kind of one lesson learned that you think might be helpful to owners of those kinds of businesses?
Well, absolutely. So it's become sort of my, I'll call it my mantra over the past several years. So I got my degrees in chemistry and finance, and I was going to solve the world's problems with process. All right. Like I was a technical guy. I'm like, I'm going to fix this stuff. And what I learned very early in my career was that process was only useful to the extent that people would engage with it. So the mantra that I've created is that people without good process get frustrated, and process without people is wasted. So if you create great processes for a job description or for a role, but it doesn't get used for whatever reason, then it's wasted. On the
Right.
other hand, if you don't create processes that people engage with, you're going to have frustrated clients, frustrated employees, frustrated vendors. Everybody's going to be frustrated. So that what I call the intersection of people and process is critical. If you focus too much on people, but don't give them tools to create process, it's not going to work. If you focus too much on process, but you don't develop people and have emotional intelligence, and then they're not going to follow the processes. And so it's really this intersection is where I just have so much passion figuring out how to get people and process lined up together to accelerate performance.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm a process lover as well. So that's another thing we have in common. But that's great that you have that passion, you have the experience, and that what I see in a lot of small mid-sized businesses, they know the craft, they know what they're trying to do, but not necessarily how to kind of pull apart and simplify process in a way, like you said, that meets the needs of the organization and gets used. So that's great. Okay, well, want to thank you for being a guest today. If somebody wants to reach out to you, a business owner, business leader, I should ask, do you work primarily in the Chicago area, or do you have clients outside?
No, we've got clients actually all over North America, and I've got a team that's a global team as well. So, but primarily our clients are across North America. We've got clients from Tampa to Chicago area to California. We're kind of all over the country.
Okay.
I do a lot more in-person stuff in the Chicagoland area, but I now have some subcontractors working for me, and in the virtual stuff, we can do pretty much anywhere. So.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
So if somebody wanted to reach out to you and learn more about your optics system and how to improve process within their organization, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah. So they could visit our website at epszone.com, or they could look me up on LinkedIn. They're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn at Ryan C. Weiss. So I got my middle initial in there to make it a little easier to find me. So welcome to reach out either through our website or through LinkedIn. I'd be happy to engage with folks in either way.
Okay, that's awesome. So again, if you want to reach Ryan, check him out on epszone.com, or LinkedIn, Ryan C. Weiss, and the last name is Weiss. Okay. Okay, Ryan, appreciate you being our guest. And I thank our audience for joining us for another episode of Leaders of Lasting Impact.